museum is quiet at 1:24 in the morning. A young security guard sits at his desk in the basement of one of the most valuable private art collections in the world. He's a college kid. He's not entirely sober. And when two men in police uniforms ring the employee entrance buzzer and say they are responding to a disturbance, he does not call his supervisor. He does not check for a dispatcher code. He just buzzes them in. Within minutes, he is handcuffed to a pipe in the basement, duct tape over his eyes and mouth. 81 minutes later, the men are gone. And in the Dutch room upstairs, heavy gold frames hang empty against the walls. They hang there still, 35 years later. The canvas is cut away. The room, a kind of gilded skeleton of what it used to be. No arrests, no recoveries, no answers, just the frames. This is still unexplained. Brief explorations of unsolved mysteries. My name is Mark. The Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum sits in Boston's Fenway neighborhood, a short walk from the ballpark. From the outside, it looks like a Venetian palazzo. They got confused about geography, which is entirely intentional. Isabella Stewart Gardner built it that way. She wanted the building to feel like somewhere else, somewhere ancient and beautiful and slightly out of time. And she filled it with the same philosophy. Sargent paintings, Raphael drawings, a bronze vessel from the Chinese Shang dynasty, and in the Dutch room on the second floor, a Rembrandt, another Rembrandt, a Flink landscape, and a Vermeer. And not just any Vermeer, the Concert, painted around 1664, depicts three figures gathered around a harpsichord in a warm domestic interior. At the time of the theft, scholars estimated it was worth somewhere in the range of $200 to $300 million on its own. Today the estimates are higher. It is the most valuable stolen painting in the world, and it has been missing for 35 years. These were works that belong in textbooks, hanging behind rope barriers in hushed rooms in major capitals. Instead, they hung here, in a modest building in Boston, in frames Isabella Gardner herself had selected, guarded by a small staff and a security system that was, to be charitable, optimistic. The thieves, who walked in on March 18, 1990, were not the first people to notice the gap between what was hanging on those walls and what was standing in front of them. That story goes back nearly 20 years earlier. In the 1970s, a career criminal named Robert Donati struck up a friendship with a man named Miles Connor Jr. Connors was something of a walking contradiction. He played in a rock band, he had a refined knowledge of fine art, and he also had a criminal record long enough to use as a bookmark. Together, Donati and Connor began making visits to the Gardner. Not as admirers exactly, as students. They would walk the galleries, they would observe the guards, and on more than one occasion, they would actually climb trees near the museum at night and time the security rounds through the windows. Two men in a tree with a stopwatch, mapping a heist that would not happen for 2 decades. Connor tried to steer his partner towards the most valuable pieces. The Taishun, an ancient Chinese vessel. Donati was interested in those, but he kept coming back to something smaller, something comparatively worthless. A bronze eagle finial, mounted on the top of a Napoleonic silk flag. He liked that eagle. He wanted that eagle. Connor found this mildly ridiculous, which is perhaps the most relatable reaction to this entire story. Donati eventually moved on to other work. Connor went to prison, and the Gardner Museum kept its quiet routine, and the eagle kept its post at the top of the flagpole, gold and oblivious. By the late 1980s, the Boston underworld was not a comfortable place to operate. The Patriarca crime family, which had run organized crime in New England for decades, was coming apart at the seams. A gangster named Frank Salami had survived an assassination attempt outside a restaurant in Saugus. Whitey Bulger's Winter Hill gang was tightening its grip, and a man named Vincent Ferrara, known as the Animal, had just been arrested on federal racketeering charges. Ferrara was Donati's boss, his mentor, the man Donati was loyal to in a world where loyalty was the only currency that mattered. Donati needed a way out for Ferrara, and he remembered what Miles Connor had done years earlier. Use stolen art as a bargaining chip to reduce a prison sentence, a trade. The masterpieces for the man. It had worked before. Why not now? So in the months before the heist, Donati reportedly began circling back to his old obsession. A witness placed him at a bar in Revere, holding a package. Inside, police uniforms. On March 18, 1990, at 1:24 in the morning, 2 men in those uniforms rang the employee entrance of the Gardner Museum. The night watchman, Richard Abath, buzzed them in. One man told Abath there was a warrant out for his arrest and asked him to step away from the security desk, away from the panic button. Abath complied. Both guards were cuffed, taped, and secured to pipes in the basement. One of the thieves, before heading upstairs, paused and asked if the guards were comfortable. He may have even apologized. Then they went to work. 81 minutes, 2 trips to their car, 13 pieces, 2 Rembrandts, the concert by Vermeer, worth more than some National Museum collections in their entirety, a Flink landscape, a Manet, a Degas, and a small Chinese bronze vessel that Miles Connor had spent years trying to convince his old partner to appreciate. And the eagle. They unscrewed the eagle from the top of the flag. This is the detail that investigators keep returning to. The thieves walked past a Michelangelo sketch. A sketch by Michelangelo. They left it on the wall. But they stopped to unscrew a bronze decorative finial that had no real market value, no resale potential, no obvious logic, unless you were the man who had been thinking about that eagle for 20 years. Then there's the other figure in this story, the one who's never quite been explained away. Richard Abath was 23 years old on the night of the heist. He was the guard who buzzed the thieves in. By his own account, he heard Boston police through the intercom, saw 2 uniforms through the door, and complied. But investigators noticed something else. Earlier that same evening, before the theft, Abath had propped open a side entrance to the museum. No one has ever fully accounted for why. He claimed it was routine, a habit, a way to get some air. The FBI was not satisfied with that answer, and they kept coming back to him for decades. In 2013, the Bureau publicly identified him as someone they believed had prior knowledge of the heist, possibly having helped coordinate access for the thieves. Abath has consistently denied it. He has never been charged, and he has never fully explained the prop door. And the question of whether the 2 men in police uniforms were let in sits unresolved in every account of that night. Here's the other thing. In a recorded conversation at the federal lockup in Hartford, made not long after the heist, Donati spoke in careful, coded language to a skeptical Ferrara. Ferrara told him no deal could get him out. Donati's response? They will for these. You'll see. He knew what it was going to take. He already had the list. So here's where it branches. The most straightforward explanation, and the one most investigators have quietly settled on, is that Robert Donati planned and executed the Gardner heist himself, likely with an associate named David Houghton, as a leverage play to free Vincent Ferrara. The evidence for this is hard to dismiss. The police uniform signature, the surveillance of the museum going back 20 years, the coded jail conversation, the eagle, the Chinese vessel. These are not coincidences. These are a shopping list being checked off. The weakness in this theory is that it ends without resolution. If Donati stole the art to bargain for Ferrara's freedom, he never made the trade. Ferrara served his time. The art never surfaced. Was Donati still assembling the plan when he was killed? Did the contact fall through? Did someone else intercept a deal before it could be made? The theory explains the crime, but does not explain the silence that followed. Here is where the inside job thread refuses to go away. If Abeth had coordinated access, even passively, even just by propping a door and asking no questions, the profile of the thieves changes. You no longer need two men with detailed knowledge of the museum's layout and security rhythms. You need one man on the inside and two men willing to walk through a door that was already open. The weakness in this version is the same weakness that haunts the entire case. Abeth was questioned repeatedly, over decades, and nothing prosecutable ever emerged. Either he was generally an oblivious 23-year-old who made a terrible decision when two men in uniforms told him there was a warrant out for his arrest, or he knew something. And if he knew something, whatever he knew went with everyone else who knew something about that case. Underground, unreachable, and quiet. And then there's the matter of Bobby Donati's death. On September 24th, 1991, 18 months after the heist, Donati's body was found in the trunk of a Cadillac in Revere. He had been beaten, his throat had been cut, he had been stabbed more than 20 times. His sister Lorraine later said that no one gets killed like that unless there's a dark secret behind it. She was right to ask the question. Mob killings are efficient. This was not efficient. This was a message. Maybe about the art. Maybe about something else. But definitely something. His suspected partner, David Houghton, died of heart disease a year later. Two men who may have known where $500 million in stolen art was hidden, and both gone within 2 years of taking it. Now, if you want the version that keeps the FBI analysts awake, it goes like this. The Bureau had Donati under continuous surveillance in the lead up to the heist and until his death. Not light surveillance, continuous. Whether they were watching him for the mob war or because they suspected him of planning the theft, they were close. And yet after his murder, they did not immediately search his home, his properties, his storage unit. Whatever opportunity existed to follow the trail while it was still warm closed in the weeks after his death, when the surveillance teams were reassigned and the case went cold. If the Rembrandts were behind a false wall in a Revere basement, they may still be there. The theory that most researchers quietly come back to is a variation of this. The art never left the Boston area. It was hidden locally, in a place only Donati knew, and when he died, the location died with him. The FBI has spent 30 years chasing leads that point to the same geography, South Boston, Revere, the North End. The art keeps circling back to the neighborhood where it came from. Every informant tip, every deathbed confession, every coded reference in a wire recording points to the same general radius. Close. Frustratingly close. But no address. Here's where the official count runs into a wall. The FBI has over the years also pursued theories connecting the heist to the Irish Republican Army, which was actively fundraising through American criminal networks in 1990. Art theft as terrorism financing is not a new concept, and the IRA had demonstrated a willingness to use stolen works as leverage in ways that mirrored Donati's own logic. This theory has never been fully closed, but it has also never produced to art. The IRA connection sits in a file the way a lot of things in this case sit in the file. Plausible, unresolved, and infuriating. And then there's the version almost nobody talks about out loud, but that some investigators have not ruled out entirely. What if the Gardner heist was not purely criminal? What if someone with institutional access, someone who knew the collection, knew the gaps in security, and knew exactly what to take, was using Donati as a kind of knowledgeable instrument? The specificity of the theft, the things taken and the things left behind, has always bothered people who study art theft professionally. The Michelangelo was left. The eagle was taken? That's not random. That is a collection being built by someone who has already decided what they wanted. Whether that someone was Donati acting on his own 20-year obsession, or Donati acting on someone else's list, is a question that has never been answered cleanly. So what would help settle this? Well, the art itself. A credible chain of custody. One person who can place the works in a specific location after March 18, 1990. The FBI currently offers a $10 million reward for information leading to the recovery of this collection. The museum offers an additional $100,000 separately, specifically for the return of the Napoleonic eagle. They want that eagle back badly enough to put a price tag on it alone. The Dutch room is still open to visitors. The Gardner Museum kept the empty frames on the walls by design. They are not accident or oversight. They are a statement. This is what was here. This is what is missing. Come and see the shape of the loss. People do come. They stand in front of those empty frames and try to imagine the paintings that once hung inside them. The storm on the Sea of Galilee, the lady and the gentleman in black, and the concert, the most valuable missing painting on earth. 3 figures gathered at a harpsichord in a warm room that no one else has seen in 35 years. Somewhere, possibly within a few miles of where those frames hang right now, the canvases may still exist. Rolled, crated, tucked behind drywall in a building nobody has thought to look at twice. Bobby Donati went to his trunk in Revere with whatever he knew. And the eagle, the absurd bronze eagle that started all of this, is somewhere in the dark, waiting. Thanks for listening to Still Unexplained. Please take a moment to follow the show, leave a rating, or write a quick review. It genuinely helps more people find us. And you can visit us at www.stillunexplained.com for more on this case and every episode we've done. Until next time.